Everyone else passed by the overflowing trash can near the back of Lincoln High School. Papers, wrappers, an old juice box. But something made Carl stop. A tattered, spiral-bound notebook sat crookedly on the top, edges burned, almost like someone had tried to destroy it. He reached in with his gloved hands, curious. He wasn't expecting to open it and find the first page scribbled with numbers and equations that didn't look like high school work. They looked like something from a university lab. Maybe even beyond that. Carl, the school janitor, didn't know much about math. But he knew enough to know he was holding something different, something strange, something special. And he had no idea that the boy who wrote it was sleeping just 2 blocks away, under a bridge. Carl had worked the night shift at Lincoln High for over 12 years. Quiet, methodical kind. Students ignored him. Teachers barely nodded. He didn't mind. Cleaning was peaceful, predictable. But that night, something shifted. He couldn't stop thinking about that notebook. He took it home and placed it gently on the kitchen table next to his leftover spaghetti. Page after page was filled with mathematical theories, symbols he didn't recognize, and even entire problems worked out with wild precision. He stared, confused. Who threw this away? And more importantly, why? The next morning, he brought it to the math department, thinking they'd tell him it was a prank or a gifted student's extra homework. But when Mr. Dalka, the advanced calculus teacher, flipped through the pages, he froze. "Where did you find this?" Dalka asked, his voice low and tight. "Trash can, behind the gym. Looked like someone tried to burn it." Dalka sat down heavily. "Carl, this is beyond high school. Some of this work is unsolved. The kind of stuff you see in academic journals. Some of it even looks like a new approach to the Riemann hypothesis." "Is that bad?" Carl asked. Dalka blinked. It's impossible. This kid, whoever he is, might be a genius." 2 blocks away, under the Main Street Bridge, 14-year-old Theo pulled a hoodie tighter around himself. Last night had been rough. Wind howled through the cracks. In the concrete, his notebook was gone. He'd panicked when he realized it. It had been his only outlet, his only proof that he still existed. He had tried to burn it when hunger and despair took over, thinking it was stupid, that none of it mattered, that no one would care if he solved anything. But he couldn't bring himself to do it. He tossed it in the trash and walked away. Now he felt hollow, exposed, his one treasure, his mind, thrown away like nothing. What Theo didn't know was that the man who found it was already on a quiet mission to track him down. Carl spent his breaks near the back alley where he found the notebook, asking questions, watching. He showed the first page to the lunch lady, the security guard, even the neighborhood grocer. No one recognized the handwriting, until a student, Emily, saw Carl holding the notebook and whispered, "I think I know that writing. I saw it on the back of a flyer once. It was some homeless kid drawing on scraps outside the park." Carl's heart pounded. Homeless? That night, after his shift, Carl went walking with sandwiches in his backpack and the notebook in hand. He didn't know what he was looking for, only that he had to try. Then, near the bridge, he spotted a boy sitting cross-legged with a paper cup beside him, scribbling furiously on the back of a pizza box. Carl froze. It was the same handwriting. Carl didn't approach right away. He watched from across the street, the boy's outline lit by the dull glow of a flickering street lamp. The way he gripped the pen, the fierce concentration. Carl had seen students slump through schoolwork, but this was hunger, not for food, for something more. The boy, Theo, muttered numbers under his breath, writing and scratching out equations like he was chasing ghosts on cardboard. Every few minutes he'd pause and look around nervously, as if expecting someone to chase him off. Carl stepped forward slowly. "Evening, son." Theo flinched. His hand darted over the pizza box like he was protecting something sacred. "I'm not bothering anyone," Theo said sharply. "I'll move." Carl raised both hands gently. "Easy. I'm not here to move you. I found something that might belong to you." He pulled the notebook from his bag. Theo's eyes widened like he'd just seen a ghost. "You kept it." His voice cracked. "I did," Carl said. "Didn't seem like trash to me." Theo stared, unsure whether to cry or run. Carl sat on the cold sidewalk beside him. "You want a sandwich?" There was a long pause. Then Theo nodded. They sat together in silence for a while, chewing. Theo didn't talk much, but Carl didn't push. When the boy finally opened up, it wasn't with words. It was by flipping the notebook open and showing Carl the pages. He explained things Carl didn't understand, stuff about prime numbers and symmetry and something he called hypothetical space. His eyes lit up, his hands flew as he spoke. Carl didn't get the math, but he got Theo. The boy was brilliant and completely alone. The next morning, Carl brought the notebook to Mr. Dalka again. This time, he brought Theo with him. Theo stood awkwardly at the edge of the teacher's desk, his hoodie pulled low over his face, eyes darting like a cornered animal. Mr. Dalka adjusted his glasses. "So you're the one who wrote this?" Theo nodded. "You're not enrolled at Lincoln. Where do you go to school?" Theo didn't answer. Carl spoke for him. "He doesn't. He's been living under the bridge near 9th Street. Hasn't had a home in months." Mr. Dalka frowned. "But this work, you're telling me you did this with no teacher, no computer?" Theo shifted. "I used to go to the library, before they started locking the computers after an hour. I watch lectures on phones when I can. I see numbers differently." Mr. Dalka was quiet. Then he said softly, "Theo, one of these equations is a modified proof of the Collatz conjecture. I don't even teach that to my college students." Theo shrugged. "It was bothering me. I couldn't sleep until I figured out a way to simplify it." Carl watched as Dalka leaned back in his chair, stunned. But not everyone was impressed. When Carl brought Theo to the principal's office later that day to see if they could help enroll him, the reaction wasn't warm. Principal Mercer scowled at the idea. "We can't just enroll any kid off the street. There are procedures, IDs, guardians, proof of residence." "He's a genius," Carl said. "Doesn't that count for something?" Mercer folded his arms. "Even if it did, we're not a shelter. He's not our responsibility." Theo lowered his head. He'd heard it before. Carl clenched his jaw. "Then make it your responsibility." The principal stood firm. "I'm sorry. He's not our student. He can't be on campus." Carl led Theo out in silence. But something inside him snapped. He wasn't going to let this boy fall through the cracks. That night, Carl called in a favor. His sister Marcia worked part-time at the local news station as a researcher. He told her everything, the notebook, the bridge, the rejection. "You've got to be kidding me," she said. "A homeless math prodigy, and the school shut him out?" She made a few calls. The next morning, a reporter showed up at Lincoln High, notebook in hand, asking questions. And that afternoon, Theo's story hit the local evening news. "Homeless teen solves college-level math, but school says, not our problem." The video went viral overnight. By morning, Carl's phone was ringing off the hook. Scientists, university professors, journalists. Even a billionaire tech entrepreneur had tweeted, "Somebody find this kid and get him a scholarship immediately." But not everyone was celebrating. Principal Mercer called Carl into his office, furious. "You went to the press?" Carl didn't back down. "I did what you wouldn't. Do you have any idea the chaos you've caused?" Carl looked him square in the eye. Good. Carl didn't go back to work the next day. Instead, he took Theo to breakfast, his first hot meal in days, and then straight to the community, sent to downtown. It wasn't a school, but it had internet, a roof, and people who cared. Carl had convinced the director to give Theo access to a study room and a computer terminal. Theo's eyes lit up when he saw the whiteboard. Within minutes, he was sketching ideas, mumbling concepts about tangential wave theories and fractal recursions. A volunteer tutor peeked in and just stood there, slack-jawed. "I've never seen anything like this," she whispered to Carl. "This kid, he's like a walking theorem." Carl smiled. "He just needs a place to stand." The story continued, spreading. A local math professor, Dr. Halverson from the university, came down personally to meet Theo. She brought printouts of famously unsolved problems, Millennium Prize-type stuff, and watched as Theo scanned one and asked, "Has anyone tried rotating the axis field first?" It was a question that stunned her. By the end of the session, Dr. Halverson had made 2 calls, one to the university's admissions board and one to a friend at the Department of Education. Suddenly, Theo's future wasn't just a fantasy, scribbled on the back of a pizza box. It was real. But there was a problem. Principal Mercer hadn't forgotten the public embarrassment. And when a news crew tried to film Theo on school grounds, hoping for a feel-good segment, Mercer called security and had Carl escorted off campus. "You're trespassing now," he hissed. Carl didn't argue, but he did turn, facing Mercer, with quiet fury. "Do you know what it feels like to be invisible?" he asked. "To clean your floors, mop your messes, and never be seen? That boy, he sees things none of us can. And all you saw was a problem." Mercer shook his head. "You're not a teacher, Carl. You don't get to decide who gets a future." Carl looked him dead in the eye. "Neither do you." That night, Theo and Carl sat on a park bench under a fading orange sky. Theo held a manila envelope. Inside was a temporary student ID from the university and a note from Dr. Halverson. "Full scholarship pending documentation. We'll handle the red tape. You handle the math." But Theo was quiet, troubled. "I don't belong there," he murmured. "They'll laugh. I'm just a kid with no address, no parents, no shoes that match." Carl turned to him. "You know." "What I see when I look at you. Not a runaway, not a charity case. I see a mind that scares grown men, a heart that still wants to learn, even when the world told you to give up." Theo's voice trembled. "I didn't mean to be born like this." Carl placed a hand on his shoulder. "No one ever means it, but you mean something, and you're not alone anymore." Theo wiped his eyes with his sleeve. Carl leaned back, eyes misting. "You gave me something too, kid." "What?" "Purpose. I didn't know I had any left." Just then, Carl's phone buzzed. Another call. It was the governor's office. They wanted to meet Theo, not for punishment, but for recognition. The meeting was held at the governor's civic center downtown. Reporters lined the hallway. Cameras clicked, flashbulbs popped. But Theo kept his head down, clutching Carl's hand like a life vest. He wore a borrowed blazer 2 sizes too big, a tie knotted awkwardly by Carl himself, and a pair of sneakers that didn't match. But his eyes, they carried something electric. Now, confidence, barely contained. Inside, the room fell quiet as Governor Ramirez stood and smiled warmly. "Today," she said, "we recognize a young man whose brilliance humbles us, and the man who believed in him when no one else did." She turned to Theo. "Genius can be born anywhere, but rarely does it survive the streets." A staffer rolled out a whiteboard. The governor stepped aside. "Theo, I believe you wanted to show us something." Theo hesitated, then stepped forward. He uncapped a marker and began writing. Slowly at first, then faster. His numbers and symbols flowed across the board like a language only a few in the room could understand, but all of them felt gasps, whispers. A professor from the back stood up and whispered, "He's proving a unique case of the Navier-Stokes equation." "No way!" When Theo stopped, the room erupted in applause. Not polite, not scripted. Real. He turned to Carl. In front of everyone, he ran and hugged him. Tight. Carl's eyes shimmered. That moment went viral. A janitor finds a genius in the trash. A boy who slept under bridges solves the unsolvable. Two forgotten souls find family in each other. Within a week, Theo was officially enrolled in a university prep program, fully funded. He had a permanent room in campus housing, a computer of his own, and a small stipend to buy books and clothes. Carl? He was offered an honorary role at the university, student mentor and advocate. But he still cleaned part-time. Said it helped. Him think. Principal Mercer, meanwhile, received backlash for his behavior. A quiet investigation into his disciplinary practices led to early retirement. No cameras came for him. The school installed a new policy for recognizing and supporting non-traditional learners, inspired by Theo's story. And every Friday, Carl and Theo met at the same diner. Pancakes, coffee, laughter. "Hey," Theo said once, flipping open a new notebook. "Want to see my idea for quantum loops inside black holes?" Carl smiled. "Only if you explain it like I'm 5. Theo grinned. "Deal." One night, Carl stood in Theo's new dorm room. The walls were lined with chalkboard paint. Equations everywhere. Carl picked up an old, charred spiral notebook. The original one. The one he found in the trash. Ever want this back?" Theo shook his head. "No. You saved it for a reason, and it saved me." He paused. "That notebook was just proof I had something inside me." He looked up. "But you were the first one to see it." Years later, Carl stood outside the same Lincoln High School where he had spent so many quiet nights. The janitor's uniform was gone, replaced by a simple but proud university staff jacket. He was no longer just a cleaner, he was a mentor, a beacon for kids others overlooked. A crowd gathered that afternoon for the unveiling of a new scholarship fund. The Carl and Theo Hope Scholarship, dedicated to students facing hardship, but gifted with brilliance. Theo, now a young man with a degree in theoretical physics, stood by Carl's side, his smile radiant. The principal's old office building was now the Theo and Carl Learning Center, a place filled with books, computers, and open doors for anyone who needed a second chance. Carl's voice cracked as he addressed the crowd. "There was a time when I thought all I did was clean up messes no one else wanted to see. But sometimes, those messes hold the brightest stars." He glanced at Theo, who nodded back, eyes shimmering with tears. Theo stepped forward next. "I was a kid lost in the shadows. No home, no hope. But one man saw me when no one else would. He found my notebook in the trash, yes. But more than that, he found the me inside it." He paused, voice breaking. "That notebook was just paper and ink. But Carl gave it meaning. He gave me a future." The crowd was silent, holding their breath. Theo looked toward the sky. "I've learned that sometimes the world tries to erase you, to throw you away like trash. But you have to believe someone will find you. Believe that someone will care." He turned back, eyes shining. "And if you're that someone, don't give up." Later that evening, Carl sat alone on a bench by the old bridge where they first met. The wind rustled gently. In his hand was the charred spiral notebook, now safely preserved in a glass case at the university. He whispered softly, "You were the one who saved me, Theo." As the sun set, casting golden light on the cracked concrete, Carl smiled through tears. A boy once forgotten, a janitor once invisible. Together, they became a story of hope, kindness, and the power of seeing the unseen. And remember, dear listener, sometimes the greatest treasures aren't found in gold or fame. They're found in a second chance, a kind word, a belief in someone when no one else does. Hold on to hope, because hope changes everything.